All right, I have 1 minute after. I want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Michael Hauck. I serve as the Chief People and Experience Officer at congruentX. We started a series a few months ago with some of our partners, and actually about 5 months ago, I had this same guest, but we've got some logistical differences here, so I'm going to ask Fadi to introduce himself, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're here to talk about today.
Hey everyone, my name is Fadi Kanaan. I'm here with ClickLearn, act as the Director of Strategic Partnerships. So this is our first time doing it live.
In person.
This is not virtual.
Yeah, if you can't tell, Fadi and I are literally sitting next to each other in a room on ClickLearn's offices. And we've got our, for those who know me, whether you want to call them producers, I probably would refer to them as our handlers in the next room just to keep us under control. But as I said, we did a session about 5 months ago where we talked a little bit about ClickLearn and ClickLearn's product and how ClickLearn can help you with your user adoption and your engagement of your platform. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. Fadi has some big news to share. And so I want him to talk about that, and then we'll kind of come back and tie that new announcements into user adoption and the way that we have seen and are now seeing moving forward our clients and prospects leveraging ClickLearn to increase their adoption and user satisfaction. So without any further ado, let's talk about what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today is kind of the future of adoption, user adoption. Everyone's talking about AI, you're getting a lot of buzzwords, but let's talk about what's here, what's now, what's real, and what you can utilize today. So if we kind of back up for a second, when we talk about user adoption methods, there's a few of them, right? You have the live in-person or Zoom, initial training, when you're educating, a company or users on a business system. Then you have, once you finish that, you document these processes in some sort of way and put them into a SharePoint or a user portal that the end users can log into and watch a video, read a piece of documentation on how to do a process, or you can even test these users to see if they actually absorb this knowledge that they're learning. And then maybe once they're ready and tested, they can go into the live system. And then we also have in-app guidance, right? You're hearing things like Copilot and guiding the users in the application itself. And I think there's definitely use cases for every single one. And I think all three are important. I don't think one outweighs the other. That's for sure. And so ClickLearn, as we kind of move forward and trying to innovate, stay ahead, with feedback from our partners and customers, the main piece of feedback we got was, how can end users stay in the flow of work at all times and not have to be distracted and go out and run to another room and knock on someone's door? How do I do this in CE or F&O or whatever their business system is? Or exiting to a learning portal, watching a video, reading a piece of documentation, and then going back to work. It can be distracting, take you outside of that flow of work.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second because of something you just said, right? I think it's important for the audience to understand, right? Anybody who knows congruentX knows that we focus largely on what Microsoft used to call Dynamics 365 customer engagement, and of course the Power Platform. We've now pivoted a little bit, and we call it revenue operations, right? But it's the front end of the house: sales, marketing, customer service, customer experience. But ClickLearn's tools don't just support that side of the business. ClickLearn's tools can support all sides of the business, as well as a bunch of different applications, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can record processes in sort of a variety of different Dynamics applications and even web applications as well. So, and so what we're coming out with, we call UXP. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Some marketing material has gone out. What is UXP? UXP stands for User Experience Panel. And it's really a digital companion that lives and breathes within the business system that you are using. So it's like a digital companion guiding you through your day-to-day work and processes. So there's kind of three things, and I'm going to actually show it on the screen here. guys should be able to see that, and we'll walk through some what that looks like in sort of the use case for every single thing. But what's included in UXP? So this panel you see on the right is built into the application that you're using. And so there's a home page, and it can understand and knows which page you're on. So if you're using CE, for example, and you're on the leads page, it's going to show you processes that are related to leads. Opportunities, going to show you processes related to opportunities. There's also a chat functionality where you can ask it questions. How do I do this process? Or I forget the last 5 steps of how to create a lead. How do I do that? And it can answer, and you can chat back and forth. And then there's a notifications tab, which will show the end users notifications, whether there's new processes that have been released or have been updated, or general announcements for the organization. So really, this is just a different way to digest the knowledge, right?
Without leaving the app.
Without leaving the app. So, you know, the process of, I don't want to mislead anyone and say that AI knows your entire processes, because we're not there yet. Maybe at some point in the future, but not at the moment. So when we're talking about capturing your processes, you're still going to do it as you would traditionally. If you're using ClickLearn, that's going to be, using a click authoring tool, clicking through, you're going to record, you're going to produce it, and then you're going to publish it. It's just the way that you're going to access information is now changing with this new eventual rollout. And that's how we come back to staying, in that flow of work, right? Staying in tune and not having to exit and leave, knock on people's doors. It's right there at your fingertips when you need it. And I think that's kind of the most valuable thing. And the feedback that we've received from partners and our end users, keeping them in tune. So as of right now, as Mike was mentioning, some of the platforms, UXP, or the user experience panel, I will say a date, not yet, in a couple of minutes, but it will be available for CE, F&O, and Business Central. But eventually, this will kind of be rolled out to any platform that you're using, essentially, keeping you in tune.
Like any software company, right? This is version 1, and version 1 is going to start with the products where you have the most customers and
where the demand is.
Yep, where you got the feedback and everything else, and then it'll broaden. And of course, there's already a roadmap with additional functionality that the team is working on, and we're not going to talk about that because we don't control that, right? We're going to talk about the stuff that Fadi knows and he's allowed to talk about today. But I think, to the point, right, really what we're talking about is a different experience of being able to keep the users inside the application as much as possible, and for them to still get the knowledge that they need to be more effective in their jobs and their roles. And I'm sure some of you on the call are already thinking about opportunities where maybe this can get used in the future. We'll continue to keep you apprised of the roadmap and what's coming on. You can follow us at congruentX, and we'll share that stuff, or you can follow ClickLearn directly, and obviously they're going to share that stuff. It's their stuff, right? But we think this is really important based on the customers that we already have that are using the tool, as well as conversations that we're having with folks that maybe aren't using the tool yet, or are thinking about a tool and or are just struggling with user adoption and engagement. And that's why we wanted to do this session today, to talk a little bit specifically about this piece. And of course, everybody's talking about AI and co-pilots and things like that. And I think this really melds into that conversation well, in terms of what the folks at ClickLearn are doing to try and increase.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think there's always the use case for a learning portal. And to me, the use case for UXP, the user experience panel, is I've done my training, whether it's in classroom, in person, or in the learning portal. But it's always nice to have support and guidance when you post training.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember everything in training.
Well, I was literally on site last week doing training for a joint customer of ours. They use ClickLearn as well. And, to me, it's kind of that 80-20 thing, right? If it's something that I'm doing on a regular basis, I'm more likely to remember to know how to do it and to do it. But if it's something that maybe I'm only doing weekly or monthly or quarterly,
right,
I'm probably going to forget. And so to have a tool like this where I can go back and get that answer and don't have to pick up the phone and call somebody or wait for training or whatever to understand that process is really a big deal, I think, for organizations.
Yeah. And that's where kind of we lead off to the next, topic is the chat functionality, which is probably the coolest thing, I think. It's a cool feature for sure. So it is built off of ChatGPT, but as I said before, you still need to record your process. ChatGPT does not know your processes for now, and maybe a long time. So you still need to capture that. But you can ask the chat a question. And an example of Mike was saying, maybe it's a process I don't do that often. Maybe it's a process I do every quarter. I know the first 5 steps, but the remaining 10 steps, I always. Or maybe I'm kind of newish to the organization and I want to ask a simple question. So it could be something like, hey, I've joined the organization. I need to create an order for this customer with these SKUs, or I need to create a new lead or opportunity. How do I do that? And so the chat will respond to you with kind of the step-by-step instructions, but it'll also say, would you like to watch a video? Click here, and it will show the video like as many ClickLearn users know, and kind of guide you through a video. Or we have the in-app guidance, which you can select, and it will now show you within that live system what to do. So click on this field, enter data here, this, and so on and so forth. So it can also identify which step you are on in the process. So if you're on step, you've done the first 3 steps, then you ask for help. It knows that you've done the first 3 of that process, and then guides you from there.
And that's the screenshot that you have up. Right?
Yes.
The blue bubble is the new employee asking for help in chat, right?
Absolutely. And then we have the white, which is the response that you would get, and then you can get assistance from there, further assistance from there. So I think this is extremely cool because now like I said, I don't have to leave. I can ask it a question, and it's really cool. It can this is based off the recordings and that the authors do create, and the authors are the ones that are creating and recording and publishing the documentation and the material. So it's just a cool way to quickly not be distracted by having to go and find this video in a learning portal and then read it, or read the instructions. I can just right then and there be guided on how to do that process step by step.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think before we open up to questions, just, you and I've talked about this a little bit, obviously before the webinar, and just thinking about what you're saying, maybe a couple of clarifications.
Yes.
For the audience, right? So you said it uses ChatGPT, right? But you also said you still have to document your own. I say processes because I'm from the US. You say processes because you're from Canada.
Yeah.
It sounds better anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like
that British influence.
Yeah, right. But you still have to document those as part of the ClickLearn product and tool set, right? In order for UXP to know what your process is. Correct?
Exactly. And I'm not using this chat functionality. Like if I ask it, hey Mike, not Mike. Hey Chad, how do I bake chocolate chip cookies for 12 people? It's not gonna answer. It's gonna only answer relevant questions.
Only in the context of
to the business system that you're in, and to the procedures that you have recorded.
Okay.
So
and if I do that, those processes that I document within my organization, they only live in my ClickLearn, right? It's not like everybody else that's using ClickLearn can see my processes or anything like that.
No, yeah, exactly. It's what we call a closed loop. So if you do ask it a question, it's not going out to ChatGPT servers to make it more smarter and available for everyone. It's in your environment only.
Got it.
That's it. So.
Okay.
Because security is priority, especially when we're talking about advanced tools, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, security, obviously with AI, you have people on both sides of the fence, right? You've got some people that are like, I definitely want to control what my AI is looking at, what it's doing, everything else. And then you have other people that are like, well, no, if it's on the internet, I want to leverage it. Well, there's pros and cons to both of those, but I think it's important for the folks on the webinar to understand the way that the tool is structured and how it's designed, at least currently. Again, we can't predict the future, so we'll see where things go, and obviously that'll have an impact on the tooling. And with it being new, obviously there'll be a lot of feedback and input into where it goes from there. So let's go back to the newness. You mentioned earlier, you said you were going to share a date.
The date, yeah. So we do have a date. April 16th is the kind of the go live of the official launch of UXP. So we never announced that yet. So this is the breaking reveal. So April 16th, UXP will be available for the Dynamics platforms that I mentioned, CE, F&O, Business Central. And then of course, we're going to roll that out to other applications as well. But those are kind of the initial ones. Another thing I wanted to touch base on was the notifications and the benefit of kind of the use case for that. Because before, I guess, how would you notify end users that there's been maybe a new, a recording that has been produced, or an update to that recording, obviously. Before, you would probably have to send an email out to everyone, or I don't know, go knock on their door. That doesn't happen too much with everyone working remotely. But we do have a notifications tab to notify end users of any updates, any changes to the documentation. But it can also be very general. It could be, sure, hey, Mike, we have lunch in the office today. So the authors, as we call it, the ones that are creating, producing the material, are the ones that are pushing out the notifications to the end users. But it's just to make them aware of any changes to procedures or any general company information in general that you want to push out to these end users.
Awesome.
But that is kind of it. I think kind of short and sweet where it's going. I think there is definitely advancements happening in the user adoption space. A lot of changes. Everyone's talking about AI, but I want it to be a little bit realistic to where we are and where it's going. As I said, there's been a lot of demand for having a tool that's kind of built into the system itself. And we've listened to, feedback from our customers and partners, and hopefully this kind of delivers to that.
So one of the other questions that I was thinking of as you were talking, Fadi, with UXP, is this an all or nothing thing? Like if I turn UXP on, well, first of all, do I turn it on or does it turn on automatically once it's rolled out? Do you know?
No, you will have to. If you're using ClickLearn today, it's something, depending on the license that you have, it's something that you do have to download and install. It's not just going to switch on like that. Okay. It's just a quick extension browser that you add on.
And if I start using it,
yes,
does the learning portal as it stands today go away, or how does that?
No, we don't have any plans to sunset the learning portal. Okay. As I said, I think there's definitely a use case for both the learning portal, and they're separate, right? So there's no plans on, hey, if we go with UXP, does that mean we're going to lose the learning portal? No, absolutely not. So all your processes will still be.
So that also means, as a customer, right, it gives the flexibility and the option to take those specific processes that maybe they want to target first for UXP that are maybe more complicated or where they get more questions. Mm-hmm. And do those first, and the stuff that's maybe standard and baked that they've already got in a learning portal they can worry about later, or maybe not even worry about at all for UXP.
Yeah, you can definitely utilize it as that. My thoughts are definitely using the learning portal as like the initial training, right? If I'm new to the organization,
yep,
or I'm new to the business system that I'm using, let me spend time in the learning portal, either watching videos or reading documentation. And then of course we can test that end user to see, hey, do they actually understand the processes? Sure. And once they get like a passing grade or if they feel confident, then they can get thrown into the live system. And if they need help, of course, UXP is always there to guide them. So that's how I like to separate it. Is learning portal for the initial, UXP, the user experience panel, for definitely that kind of post training support to guide that user.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody who's been on one of these before knows that I like to leave room at the end for questions. So you've got a couple options, right? You can either type your question in the chat and Fadi and I can see that and we'll respond. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I don't know. I'm looking at our handlers to see if they want to open up I don't know if they want to open up microphones or not, but it doesn't matter. There's a couple different ways. Either throw your question in chat or raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll try and answer it. Again, neither one of us built the product, so if it's deep product information, we may not be able to answer it, but we've been talking about this for a little bit, and certainly, Fadi knows it well enough that we can talk about some use cases and some places where we think it really can help your users. All right, I see some typing. Tasha says mics are open. So if you want to ask a question rather than type it in the chat or raise your virtual hand, by all means, just unmute yourself and ask your question. And we'll be glad to respond. But really what I'm interested in is hopefully you can all see how this can help your organizations and your customers get a better user experience. Whether it's your users and how they're using the system and when they get stuck getting that answer, or whether it's the ability to deliver an answer to your actual end customers faster or better based on having the functionality that's coming in this tool beyond what you have today. So anybody have any questions? Okay, if we don't have questions, then I'll ask the question of, did we explain the tool well enough that you can see use cases or options for how it could help or not? And I'll just ask you to give us a thumbs up or raise your hand or something like that. If at least the message resonated in a way where your mind is racing and you think that there's options, and we'll leave it at that. So while we're waiting,
I think you guys explained it well. What I really like about it is it looks really clean, the UI, and then it's going to sit inside of the application. So I think users will like to use that a lot. So yeah, it's really nice. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, as Fadi said, right, they're incrementally rolling it out to the products. But if you think about all of the different products that ClickLearn supports, there are lots of different ways that this can be used, right? Beyond just the tools that we use day in and day out from business systems applications, right? And I know, we have some customers that are doing everything in the Microsoft stack, and some customers that are doing everything in other stacks, and some that have mixed stacks. And so that's really where I like it is, potentially I'm using, ABC's CRM system and DEF's ERP system. But if I'm using ClickLearn with both of those, then the user has the same experience from a learning help perspective versus maybe the two different experiences that they have in the application. And I think that's really powerful from a user adoption perspective, of regardless of whether it was IT's decision or the business decision in terms of what tools is the business using. I think having that one method of learning and getting my questions answered of how do I perform this process is really going to be helpful in those ways.
Yeah, having a single tool.
Yep.
Is definitely more efficient. To have another tool, that means you have to train them how to use it.
Exactly.
And so, which can be a blocker. And if you can reduce those blockers in any way, obviously it's going to help from a user adoption perspective.
And even, if any of you, I know, Chris asked the question on the call or made the comment on the call, right? If any of you are builders or authors of ClickLearn, right, you already have some comfort with that, regardless of which application you're using, the process of building that content is pretty similar and straightforward, across ClickLearn's platform. And so even from an authoring and content creation perspective, I think having that common UI and common process is really beneficial. Any other questions or comments on the line? I'm big on being respectful of people's time. I don't want to keep people for the sake of keeping people, but obviously if you have questions, feel free to ask them now. If you're not comfortable or you don't want to ask your question on the open line, then by all means, you can either reach out to me, Mike at congruentX.com, pretty common if you don't know me, or you can reach out to Fadi directly if you want to talk to him. And I don't know if you want to give your email or if you want to use the generic ClickLearn email or whatever for them to get a hold of you guys. That's up to you.
Well, yeah, we'll send the emails out afterwards. My email is fka@clicklearn.com. And I guess This is recorded.
This is recorded.
So-
We will put it on the congruentX YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and then we'll share it with ClickLearn, and they'll put it on their social channels as well. So if you want to go back and listen to the recording after the fact, or you're not clear on something, or like I said, if you have questions later, by all means, please feel free to reach out. We'll either get you the answer if we know it, or we'll get you to the folks that actually built this particular product if we need to get some technical help around what it can do.
And then April 16th.
April 16th, put it
That's-
on your calendars.
that's
It's
it.
not that far away, less than a week. All right. Thank you all for your time and attention. We appreciate you. Obviously, it was fun for us to be in person this time versus a couple hundred miles apart. And we're glad that you all were able to join us today.
All right.
And our producers are waving hi. You can see the hands in the window. Wait, they went away. You can, if you look behind Fadi's head, you'll see the producers waving. So they're either saying hi or they're telling us to be quiet and get off the phone. One way or the
I
other.
think
So
they're trying to get us out of here. All right.
thanks all.
Bye, guys.
Have a great day.
Thank you.